Boy, do I remember Odysseus, story of Odysseus in the Odyssey. Odysseus, you should have seen what he looked like when after he got back. So he spent 20 years um, not being able to go home because it was partly because of a lot of things. And I'm not going to talk about Odysseus today, except to say that if you'd seen Odysseus when he got done with his, finally got home back to his family, uh, he would have. Well, he didn't look anything like he did when he started. In fact, his wife didn't recognize him. She thought he was an old man that was not her husband. Even 20 years passing, she looked right at her husband. 20 years had passed by since he'd been home, so he'd been gone for 20 years. And she looked right at her husband in the eyes and the face and didn't recognize him whatsoever. Just thought, she was alarmed. She thought, like, who was this man coming into my house? Because Odysseus came home to his wife, and he didn't look like the same man whatsoever. She didn't recognize him. In fact, got scared. Like, who are you coming into my house, and what do you want? Ultimately, it was Odysseus, her husband, came in. He couldn't believe it. You don't recognize me, honey? No, I don't know who you are. What are you? It's Odysseus. It's me. You're out of your mind. You're not my husband. And ultimately, he didn't believe. She didn't believe him. Certainly, when he told her that it was him, right to her face, it's me, darling. She actually said, "You're out of your mind. No way. You're not my husband. You're not Odysseus. He's been gone for 20 years, and it certainly isn't you." And he had to show her a scar on his leg um, to show her, honey, it's me, because she had dressed a scar on his leg when he was injured, a bad injury to one of his legs. Really bad scar was left on one of his legs, and she had to nurse him along with that when he was in bed with couldn't walk. So when they first got married or whatever, so he had this huge scar on his leg that was just big and obvious, and ultimately he had to pull up his leg is closed. Honey, look at this. And she's like looking at the scar, and she saw it and she recognized it immediately and knew exactly what it was. And she knew right then it was him, that it truly was her husband. There's no way that's not his leg. That's definitely my husband's leg. And ultimately she said, oh my God, she said, Odysseus, is that what happened to you? Like, you don't look at all like Odysseus, my husband. You look like an entirely different person. Oh my God. Ultimately, yeah, it was probably hard to take for Odysseus, and he he probably didn't like the idea that by the time he got home, he looked like an old man who'd been spent. Um, it was because 20 years of being tortured by the gods and goddesses and being kept from coming home and having to endure all the pain and turmoil he had to endure. It was almost too much to take. He had been literally tortured as far as in every way, not physically by people who captured him, but he was tortured in every way, mentally and emotionally, by the gods and goddesses who just tormented him constantly, especially Poseidon, who hated him and also wanted to kill him because he basically blinded his son. And so he had the wrath of Poseidon, the god of the sea, and that's partly why it took so long. And I'll tell you that the story of the Odyssey is not really accurate because in the genetics I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about genetics today. So genetics are the background of what I want to talk about. I'm going to teach some genetics, some advanced genetics, and understand that I'm not claiming to be a geneticist or a professional geneticist, but I want to tell you that God gave me the information that I have about the genetics. So I'm not a genetic professional and I don't know everything. God told me this information, so I know because God told me. So it doesn't mean that I'm Mr. Smart who knows all this genetic information. And I only know what God tells me, and He told me. So I'm really not a geneticist at all. So I just have this information. You just might think I'm a geneticist because you'll actually say, "How do you know all this stuff?" Or, "Oh my God, how? Yeah, you aren't a geneticist." No, I'm not. I wish you could think I'm one, and ultimately that's great. You could think I'm that smart, but I'm not. I truly am getting information from God. He's telling me. He knows, and I don't. So the information that He gave me is profound. Uh, the truth behind the Odyssey has to do with, and before we get into the genetics, talking about the genetics, the truth behind the Odyssey has to do with the truth of really why Odysseus had to spend 20 years suffering and he couldn't get home. It was because of he was responsible for the death of Helenus, who was a king of who in the story of the Iliad, Helenus became king. He was a Trojan prince that survived the war, a younger brother of Hector, who became kings of many lands, according to the story, and it's not true. So I want to tell you that in the Iliad, they say that Helenus uh, was a man who survived Troy, a Trojan prince, and also younger brother Hector, that became to be kings of many lands because he got captured by the Greeks and also then rewarded by Agamemnon for being a traitor to Troy. And ultimately, the story of the Iliad says that Helenus was a king. He survived, became king, married Hector's brother, or Heather's sister, or Heather's wife, uh, Hector's wife. He married Hector's wife. So basically, Hector, his wife Andromache, I can't say it, but Andromache or something like that. She married supposedly Helenus. It's all not true. I understand what happened is Helenus got captured, tortured, and killed for the information that destroyed Troy. So he knew information that was basically going to get Troy to fall. Helenus was a high priest of Apollo and had the secret information that basically could bring down Troy. They captured him, they tortured him, they killed him. And understand that in the story, they leave you an alternate ending. And there's also some reports in the story that say that he might have been captured up in the hills by Diomedes and Odysseus. And ultimately, the truth of the matter is Odysseus spent 20 years as a punishment for killing Helenus so he could make Troy fall, because Helenus was going to help him make Troy fall and ultimately be on his side. But the reality is that he didn't. He captured him, tortured him, and didn't allow him to become on his side. He just got the information and killed him. So the actual gods were mad at Odysseus for more than one reason. Okay, now we're going to talk about genetics, and I'm going to tell you that if a goddess has blue eyes, in my book, I have brown eyes, and if I'm a brown-eyed goddess, tell me who a brown-eyed goddess is or could be. Now, the fact that I have brown eyes, and I would say that I'm a goddess, well, ultimately, that's just ridiculous. It might just be someone who thinks that their brown eyes could possibly be blue. But truly, if you think that you could possibly have brown eyes, but the genes for blue eyes are in you, well, if you think that brown eyes are obvious and the blue-eyed gene could be in you and you could have brown eyes, well, it's true, you can. So if we have brown eyes, it doesn't mean we don't have the blue-eyed gene. It just means that if we have blue eyes, it came as dominant. So that's why we actually do have blue eyes. So people who have blue eyes have a dominant recessive gene that is actually being dominant in the features of what your color your eyes are. So if you said a brown-eyed person is a dominant masculine, well, that might make sense. And it could also be masculine as a blue eyes. But the point here is that you can have blue eyes and a brown-eyed gene, a gene inside you that's brown-eyed, even though you're blue-eyed. So if you had blue eyes, you wouldn't say that you don't have brown eyes, because if you have blue eyes, of course you have brown eyes. It's just that the blue eyes you have are over the brown eyes. So understand that because you have brown eyes, it doesn't make it that you're not blue-eyed. And if you have blue eyes, it doesn't mean that you don't have brown eyes. That's just the information you need to know. What God would say is that if you thought that blue eyes meant that you only had a certain kind of gene that came from blue eyes, don't think you don't have the brown-eyed gene too. It just didn't come as a dominant feature in your features in your eyeballs when they came out to be a certain color. Well, the dominant factor, whether it's recessive or not, was going to be that you had both genes. So don't think you didn't have both. People will actually make the mistake of thinking because you have brown eyes, it must be that you're a brown-eyed gene. And it's truly not even close to the truth, because you'll have a blue-eyed gene even though you have brown-eyed gene. Two. Okay. Now, Hermes is the only god that comes after human conception and is allowed, and information sharing is required for life. So, Judgment Day has already taken place. All humans have been judged, and it's too late to reverse or go back now. It cannot be that change now is possible after you've been judged and you've been looked at and judged and it's over with. So that the possible judgment that we're under right now, as we speak, has been declared and the gavel has been put down on the table. So God has made his judgments against us already. It's too late. We can't suddenly change our behavior and go back now. We can't say, God, okay, I'll behave now, or it'll be okay, or I'm sorry. Because he's going to say, well, I've already judged you. I've already looked at you, seen you, and said what you were. So it's not that you can change because you could be what you're not. I've already looked at what you are. It is what you are. So the gods are all singular halves that are exactly whole. And gods exist as singular entities, unpaired and before conception. which means that coupling and information sharing are two concepts required to be a fact before conception, and it is allowed before life is allowed. So if you are going to look at the genetics behind the behavior of what happens during human conception, we're going to discuss that for a minute. The the absolute facts about what happens during conception, that what takes place, needs to be understood. And I already know geneticists understand it. So if they already understand it and they know what it is, they should know what it is, right? They should have a clue of what it is, right? They shouldn't be dumb to it. So God created our genes in a certain way. And so that when we are able to be born, possibly, there are certain conditions that must be met in order for life itself to happen. And also, God programmed into the factor that if the conditions were not met, life could not happen. In fact, it would not be allowed to happen, which meant that miscarriages weren't by accident. And ultimately, excuse me 1 second, I'll be right back. All right. Okay, so during human conception, God set the genetics up for certain conditions that must be had or life cannot be had. And it's unbelievable what I'm about to tell you. So, first of all, whoever God was, and of course I know who he is because he talks to me all the time. He's here right now with me. Whoever he is he's God. He made the genetics the way they are. He wanted to guarantee that two things happen, or people can't come into this world and be alive. They may not. The first thing that has to happen is the two strands of DNA have to couple together. How that happens is that there's a singular strand of DNA in the men's testicles, and it's sperm. It's a singular strand of DNA on the tip of a little fish that swims. So a sperm is not what it is. A sperm is just a fish, an actual little animal that takes the DNA to its destination. So if you put a person on top of a whale or a dolphin or a fish, and then that whale swam to somewhere, that's what kind of like what a sperm is. It's the dolphin and the whale is not the sperm. The singular strand of DNA is not the sperm itself. It's on the sperm being riding it like a horse. So the singular strand of DNA on the sperm is riding the sperm like a horse to the destination, and the destination is the singular strand of mitochondrial DNA in the egg in the ovaries of the woman. So these two strands have to come together first, or life cannot happen. So ultimately, sex is required. The man has to get his sperm into her somehow, and then if it gets in her, it has to find the egg after that somehow. And if it can't find the egg, and these two strands don't come together, there's not a possibility for conception whatsoever. Now, furthermore, it's much more difficult and deep than that. If the sperm does find her, then it doesn't mean they're going to couple. And if the sperm tries to couple with her, it doesn't mean she'll want to. In fact, what you have to know is that these two strands of DNA coming together doesn't mean they're going to couple whatsoever. It doesn't mean that they're safe either and anything's good, because unless they couple, they cannot conceive. It will not become a fetus and start to develop. They have to couple. So understand that they have a chance to, once they come together, to couple. Now, if they don't couple, if they come together and they don't couple, that's a common problem with why a woman doesn't get pregnant, doesn't conceive, because they do come together and they don't couple. Whatever reason they don't couple, they do come together and it doesn't happen. It's common that it doesn't happen often enough, that they do find each other and they don't couple. And there is no life, there is no child, there shall be no life. It's not allowed. So the coupling is actually absolutely required. The coupling is a twisting around or a winding of two strands of DNA around each other. You can imagine it like two strands of spaghetti, just winding around each other to become one strand of spaghetti. It's made from two strands that now become one strand. It's like rope that's made from three small strands. It's now thicker and greater. But rope is made from three strands. And of course, the DNA is not made from three. It's made from two. It's like rope. It's made from two strands. It might be considered weak because people wouldn't make rope made from two strands. They'd use three and say you got to make it strong. It doesn't. It's not using three. It's using two and two only. And it could be weak or considered not very strong, but it's supposed to get strong, and the coupling is supposed to be strong. So if it is weak at first, it needs to get strength and become coupled and be strong. Now, let's say it does couple and it makes it to the coupling. That means they agree to actually live together and not die apart. Understand that two strands of DNA, one coming from him, one coming from her, are doomed to death. Now, understand that a sperm that fails to find the egg is under a death sentence, and it shall die. And so when that sperm is going on its little trip to get to that egg, that sperm is told by God, if you can get to that egg, my friend, then you live. And if you get to that egg and you couple with it, then you conceive and live. And if you don't find the egg, you're dead. In a matter of days, you'll die inside her body, swimming around trying to find that other strand. And if you fail to find her, you will die, Mr. Sperm, Mr. Singular Strand DNA. It's going to become a life, an actual living creature. Okay, so that sperm better find it or die, right? That's right. What about the singular strand of mitochondrial DNA? Her. That's waiting for that sperm to come. Is she finding it? No, she just sits there in the egg. It doesn't move. It doesn't try to find him. She's not hunting for him. He's hunting for her. His mission is to find her or die. Trying. Similar to what the Terminator does when he's trying to find Sarah O'Connor. He's going to try to find her or die trying. And he'll die trying if he doesn't find her. Certainly. So if he does find her, when he gets to her, she may act like Sarah O'Connor and not want to couple with him. Get away from me. I don't want to live. I'm going to be ejected out in the egg. When I have my period, I'll be nothing more than in the toilet and dead. Well, then why don't you want to couple with me if you're going to be in the toilet and dead? Well, see, what happens is that the singular strand of DNA that's actually in the ovaries of a woman is ejected from the body once a month, which means that if that singular strand wants to live and become a person, well, certainly don't think that it doesn't want to have a chance to live, because it's definitely going to die. And it's alive as a singular strand of DNA. And I tell you that it is a life form and it wants to live. It certainly doesn't want to not have a chance to live. So it's trying to have a chance to live. But it might not know that when that sperm comes to it, that it has to couple with it. And that's a requirement for that chance to live. And it may not know that. So it may think, I could live without you. Well, what she won't know, that he already knows, is if I don't find you and jump on you and couple with you by force, if I have to rape you, then fine. But I'm going to do it because I want to live and I want you to live too. The sperm will believe he's trying to save her by coupling with her by force if necessary, because if he can force the coupling on her, it's like a guy raping a woman to make a baby. Ultimately, if that baby's not born, well, then there's no child, there's no existence in the future. Meaning that a man might try to bring life into this world, whether she likes it or not. And ultimately, she won't like it a lot, which means that these two strands certainly don't have a great chance of come together all the time. And she won't want him to come save her or couple. She'll be afraid of it. This strand will avoid being coupled with. It'll get ejected from the body every 30 days. So why does the woman have her period? Because God said, if that strand of DNA sits in the body for 30 days or any time over a long period of time and refuses to couple with sperm coming in, because she's whatever bent, the attitude she's got, whatever, she doesn't want to couple with men, she's like whatever that's, the singular strand of mitochondrial DNA could feel like it doesn't want to couple with him. And so it'll refuse to, and so the sperm will show up and she'll say, get away from me. I don't want to couple with you. And he'll say, you don't understand. We both want to become alive. If you don't couple with me, we're going to both be dead. You'll be ejected from the body. Woman, you're going to be in the toilet in a tampon. And I'm going to be dying after that and starving. Yeah, we'll both die. Ultimately, if they knew that these two strands come together to save their own life, they become the baby. The right and left brain becomes what you have a right and left brain. It becomes what is left from these two strands coupling together, becoming one head, one spinal cord. It's the two strands. Your spinal cord and your brain are literally what's left of two strands of DNA that coupled together and became one human being. Now, the idea that for the you can't even come into life without coupling. You are not allowed to live. In fact, if you don't couple, both of you are dead. Every 30 days, I'm going to kill her. She can be ejected from the body, and she'll have a new egg come in, a new fresh strand come in, and I'll tell that little fresh strand, and I'm God. I'll tell that fresh strand, if you don't want to couple with the next sperm coming in, because you don't want to ever have a child, well, this whole earth won't have babies. And so you better understand, woman, you better start to couple with, let him couple with you. Ultimately, if what God will be telling that strand is, you're a new strand coming in. She just had her period and lost that the singular strand of DNA she had. That mitochondrial strand is dead. I ejected it. I pushed it out of the body. It came out of her in the blood. So she doesn't have that strand. It died. I put a new strand in there every 30 days. And God said, the new strand I put in there, I tell that strand, you bet if you want to live, you will let him couple with you. And so the new sperm will come. And if that strand don't want to couple, then it'll die and another one will come in. And she'll be keeping on being told, if you want to have any kind of a chance to have a life or a baby or even live yourself, you won't be continue to refuse to couple with him if you want to live. Well, truly, that's the idea that I'm sharing with you. That is not just a fact, but it's set up that way, meaning God set it up in the genetics so that it absolutely may not be the case that you're allowed to live if you don't couple. And that goes for both of them. So if they do couple, they are now allowed to live. So there's an official proclamation and a declaration at the moment they couple and come together and agree to it. Then God says, okay, you may conceive now. And that is when it happens, and it doesn't happen otherwise. So when they actually could do it, they twist each other around each other and say, okay, now they do what's called DNA sequencing. DNA sequencing is when there's a line for line instruction cellular program being carried out by what's called protein synthesis, often from the daughter cells. It could also be from mitochondria or any other sources of entity in the body that are creating a fetus. The fetus is created by what's called protein synthesis, and the fetus is starting to be created after the coupling takes place. The two strands are the fetus itself. They begin to do protein synthesis, and the actual cellular function of the program of protein synthesis turns these two strands into a fetus, and it starts to grow arms, legs, a brain, all the organs. So we're talking about the moment that the coupling takes place, the fetus is allowed to exist and the protein synthesis begins. And there's something called DNA sequencing that also begins now. And they are twisted together as these two strands. Each strand is given exactly half the instructions on how to create the baby or the fetus. And God had put exactly half the instructions in the nuclear strand. So the sperm has exactly half the instructions, and no more than half, but exactly one half, the first half of the instructions on how to create the fetus, and doesn't have the second half of the instructions, so it can't do it. So this, and the mitochondrial strand is in her ovaries. She has the second half of the instructions required to create the fetus healthy, and doesn't have the first half. So each strand, well, understand this is a fact, that each strand is possessing exactly half the instructions on how to create the baby and doesn't have the other half of the instructions. So they can each create half a baby physically, and he can only create one leg. She'll have to create the other leg. And this is actually accurate and exact, what I'm telling you. That God made it so the two strands, if they do come together, and they do the DNA sequencing, and the actual protein synthesis begins because of the DNA sequencing, it's a line for line sharing of instructions. And she has to put her instruction in line one. And she says, begin to make a big toe. And it makes a big toe. He says, okay, begin line two, make a second toe next to the big toe. And they're now, okay, in line three, make a third toe. And they're doing a line for line sharing of instructions, carrying the instructions out line for line. And it's making the baby by the toe and by the finger to create it. So literally, it's a sharing of information that is taking place. Now, the sharing of information during this process of what's called DNA sequencing, and then also protein synthesis, is the fetus literally being developed. And there's a period of time where the fetus is going to be developed. It's through what's happening, and the information sharing is why it's happening and how it's happening. And because each one only has half the instructions, doesn't have the other half, it is absolutely imperative, absolutely important that they cooperate in the in that development of the fetus, it's a short period of time that actually develops. The rest of the time is just growing. In the development of the fetus, it is absolutely important that they get along, share information line for line, and do not have arguments or fights or refuse to cooperate. Now, if you think that the two strands of DNA might even decide to refuse to cooperate, or they could have brains and think that they fight, or understand, you bet they can understand that they are entities that are maybe not wanting to get along, and certainly don't want to couple, and they don't want to share any information. And why do we have to do it? Ultimately, God made the second condition, which is sharing information. If you don't share the information absolutely correctly and line for line so that the baby's healthy, then the creation of the fetus itself, if anything goes wrong with it, if it's missing a toe, if it's missing a finger or an arm or even anything internally, it's called a genetic disorder. All genetic disorders come from God. God created every one of them. And he also put them into the chromosomes, stored as files to be carried out as a cellular program at a trigger. When a trigger's pulled, there's all the information to create genetic disorders inside the chromosomes. And it was put there, so God put it there. God said, I want to make sure I can create lots of genetic diseases for anyone that wants to mess with me. So ultimately, I'm telling you that every genetic disease is not by accident. And in fact, God put all the instructions into the chromosomes, and mostly into the nuclear chromosomes, to be able to make genetic disorders. Because when the daughter cells are starting to make genetic disorders, they follow instructions line for line, but not the instructions to create the fetus, the instructions to make the genetic disorder. So what makes the daughter cells that might want to create, or even if they're not daughter cells, if they want to argue they're not, what makes whatever's creating the fetus, what makes it create a genetic disorder instead, and actually follow a line of instructions that's creating a disease and not making a healthy fetus, actually? Well, it's very important to know that the healthy fetus, the instructions to make the healthy fetus are if they're sharing the information and cooperating line for line, sharing the information. And if it becomes suddenly that suddenly there's a genetic disorder being made in the baby, it's because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there has been a stopping of the creation of the fetus in the middle of it, because one of them is not cooperating with the other one, or one of them's trying to give the instruction, the other one won't let it happen. So something's going wrong. And if something goes wrong and the fetus is not being created healthy, it stops in the middle of the fetus creation, then it'll either be ejected from the body as a miscarriage, which means that if the fetus stops being developed halfway through, if a time period goes by, there'll be a trigger that goes off that says eject it from the body. It's a miscarriage. Well, if it doesn't miscarry, then it'll continue to be developed, and then it won't be ejected as a miscarriage from the body. So if it is a miscarriage, it's not by accident. It's ejected from the body for refusing to continue to grow and finish its growth. Yeah, it's just the two strands did something, stopped cooperating or don't share information. At some point, it stops right in the middle of its growth, right anywhere in the development of it. So as these two strands of DNA have to literally cooperate to make this fetus, and assuming anything goes wrong whatsoever, then the daughter cells, or if you want to argue about it, whatever makes the fetus, is instructed to quit following this set of instructions and go to protocol number 2, which is look to the chromosomes for instructions on how to create genetic disorder and disease, and they will start carrying out a function of protein synthesis, creating a genetic disorder in the baby. And the baby it's not the fetus being developed suddenly, it's a genetic disorder being developed suddenly in the baby in the place of the healthy fetus being developed, which means that God made it so the genetic disorders are punishment to the fetus for the two strands not cooperating or even refusing to cooperate or share information. If they don't share information, the fetus will be punished. The direct result of not sharing information in any way is the fetus will be punished in some manner, to some degree, by some genetic disorder. And each genetic disorder is listed as severe, not so severe, or fatal, or maybe not fatal at all. So there's many genetic disorders, and many of them will be fatal and deadly and maybe die quickly. Other genetic disorders aren't so bad, but ultimately they're all in there to be had by whoever gets them. And so whoever gets the genetic disorder is the baby being punished. So wait a minute. Are you saying the baby's being punished? Yes. The baby and the fetus gets punished for the parent for those parents refusing to share information. The baby gets a genetic disorder, and the severity of how they don't want to share the information is definitely to be different in different cases, meaning they might just be kind of not sharing the information, or maybe skipping instructions line for line, or one or two here or there, which is just making it really hard for the fetus to be developed healthy. Or they may literally not be communicating at all, which is a miscarriage, utterly an ejected fetus, if so. And so ultimately, they're doing different degrees of not cooperating. And so the sharing of the information is the factor which is responsible for the disease itself and why the fetus gets punished. Also, if they don't survive to become a fetus that's healthy and developed, they both die. So the two parent cells that create the baby both die if the baby dies. So it's also a punishment to the parents, but truly the baby will get a genetic disorder if it survives, and they will be also the baby surviving. So those two strands become the baby itself. And so they survive. If the baby survives, they survive. If the baby dies, they'll die. And ultimately, if they survive and they don't share information, the baby will get punished, and they are going to be the baby. So they'll get punished with a genetic disorder for not sharing when they were together before conception. And after conception, it's too late. They're going to have some genetic disorder that is a punishment for what they did. So the two violations of what they can do that they will be punished for utterly are refusing to couple in any way. I want you to get together and you will couple with each other and become one, and you will not bitch and moan and cry about anything. You'll get together and get along, or you'll die. But it's not that you'll die. You'll certainly not be allowed to live, guaranteed. So you won't die. You just won't. You don't get to live, guaranteed. So then the next thing is, if I do see that you're coupling, and I'm allowing you to be alive because now you can conceive, then you are allowed. You've coupled. Now I'm going to say that during fetal creation, you better share information line for line and exactly and totally share it, because if you withhold any information from each other on how to create the fetus properly, I promise you I'll punish the fetus, and you are going to be the fetus. If the fetus dies, you die. And if you survive and you don't share information and you are creating the fetus, if you're not cooperating, when that fetus becomes you too, it's going to be you too. And it'll have some sickness or disease, and you'll be suffering your whole life with what you did to yourself for not sharing information with each other. And it would happen before conception that you did it. And it would happen after conception that you were punished for it permanently, forever. Because before conception, what you did with each other was not share information, and that will be after conception your punishment, to have a genetic disorder of some kind, some severity, that may make you suffer or you die from as a result. At some point, whether it's short period of time or long period of time, it's literally a punishment that you don't want to have happen. Sharing information and coupling will be two things that you might not do. Now, knowing that, Helenus' refusal to couple was based on a Trojan belief that a singularity was valid only before conception, as the God exists in this form before conception. A God exists as a singularity, as a half, it's a whole. But ultimately, the gods and goddesses were not required to conceive. Only humans were. So the humans that have gods and goddesses in their heads, or the gods and goddesses that influence humans and get in their heads, are not required to couple. In fact, they're gods and goddesses because they don't couple. So the singularity that was valid to the Trojan society of men was the singularity that came from Zeus or Mars or a god. And it was valid because it was a singularity that came before conception, a singularity that was not allowed to live. What? Well, I mean, it's a singularity that's a god. But if it's not a god, it's not allowed to live. What do you mean? You're telling me that there's a singularity that exists that's not coupled? Yeah, it's like the strand of nuclear DNA that exists in the testicles of a man. It's not with her. It's not paired. It's not an autosome. It's not working as a pair with her. It's by itself in the testicles, and it doesn't behave in working with her. So are you saying the behavior of the sperm itself is kind of aggressive? Well, it's very aggressive. It behaves like a god. It is by itself. It is trying to get to the egg as its mission. It's empowered to find that egg at any cost and rape it, or get onto it and conceive with it and share information and couple. And it won't ask permission either. So it's actually instructed to not ask permission. It's very much of an assaulting force that comes upon a woman and rapes her and says, we're going to make a baby and I'm not asking permission. Ultimately, the behavior of the sperm is exactly like that. So the behavior of men who are exactly like that, it's not okay to behave like that. Is it okay to behave like a sperm? Well, God programmed the sperm to behave like that. Isn't that interesting? That God programmed the sperm to behave exactly like a rapist that doesn't he jumps right on her and doesn't ask for permission. That's exactly what he said has to happen. Because if you're going to be nice about it, there's going to be no coupling and there's no human race. You'll all be dead. There's no survival of the human race if you're going to not couple because you're both idiots. That was God literally saying that. Wow. The singularity that is before conception is it represents the singular strand of DNA in a man's testicles. It's not paired with her yet. All the other DNA, our chromosomes in our body, are chromosomes that we possess after conception. Understand that in a man's body, I have chromosomes all over me, in me, everywhere right now. And I have paired autosomes working all over my body right now. And they're all called autosomes. They're all paired. And it's a requirement that I may not have a singular autosome in me. Let me tell you that the reason why testicles are hanging outside my body is because God put them outside my body because they may not be inside my body. So God told me that you have testicles that are hanging outside your body and they may not be in it at any time. Why? Because the testicles you have that have nuclear strands of DNA in them are singular strands of DNA that are similar to they're not her, they're not each other. His is only coming from God, and it's definitely coming from God. It's only his, it's not hers, and it's not paired. It's by itself as a masculine alone, and it's on the hunt for her. Its behavior is to hunt her down and not kill her, maybe rape her. So ultimately, understand, maybe rape her is an accurate description of what it behaves like. God programmed it to behave exactly like that to save the human race from certain extinction. So it's just a fact that maybe we don't like. It's just a fact that it is. And the truth behind it is, I'm not trying to say a rapist is okay or it's okay for a man to rape a woman. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is it's not okay for a man to behave like God or like a sperm or like how our singular strand of DNA was programmed to behave by God. Well, it was. So then ask God what he's doing and why he did it. Well, that's kind of something to think about. Certainly he did it to save the human race because he didn't want people not to get pregnant or to even think it wasn't important to have kids or that they didn't make it happen somehow anyways on a mass scale. Men would have to be doing what they're doing. Babies would be born because of what men were doing, which wasn't even right, forcing women into relationships they didn't want to have. They'd have babies then. And the end result of the singular strand in a man would be that's a strand that comes from God, and it's outside. It's in the testicles, and it's not allowed in the body. It has to stay outside the body. So understand that the DNA I have in my testicles is unpaired. It comes from the 23rd pair of chromosomes, which is unpaired. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and 22 pairs of them are called autosomes. They're paired up, which means that 2 strands of chromosomes are always in pairs everywhere in my body, and they're never to be allowed to be not in pairs, which means that all the DNA and chromosomes I have in my body right now are all in pairs and all called autosomes and all allowed to exist after conception as it's me and I'm alive. I came and I'm alive after conception. I'm not alive before conception. So understand that the DNA in my testicles is DNA that is only allowed to exist before conception. It's not allowed to exist in the body after conception. Why the testicles are held outside the body. Because the DNA is singular in nature and is not coupled, so won't behave coupled in any way, and doesn't share information either in any way. It doesn't share any information. It's not instructed to share a single anything. It's instructed to find her, couple with her by force, and then wait for the next command. It has to do the coupling before it knows anything more. It's only thinking I got to couple with her, and that's all I have to do. So understand that it doesn't know it's supposed to share information until after it couples with her. It finds that out after its next set of instructions. But the behavior of the sperm will not share information until it becomes coupled. It will not do it, which means the coupling has to take place in order for the information sharing to even be possible by his half, because if he's not coupled with her, he certainly won't share any information, guaranteed. So that's the whole point of it. if they have to couple and the information has to be shared, well, he won't do it till after the coupling takes effect. And if she won't do it before or after, it's really pointless to even care about it, because she might not do it either. And after, she might not do it because he jumped on her by force. She might not do it after. So he might not want to share information until actually the coupling takes place, because otherwise you'll refuse. If we're not coupled, why should I share with you? And ultimately, it'll be his demise. The sperm will die refusing to share because the coupling doesn't take place properly. And if she gets forced to couple with him because the sperm will do it, jump right on her and couple with her without asking permission, well, then understand she won't like that. And that strand won't like that, I guarantee it. And it might say, fine, you just coupled with me and I don't like it. And I don't even care if you just saved my life. And the sperm will say, well, I did. I saved both our lives. Don't tell me I didn't, because you'd be ejected in the period. You're dead, woman, if you don't couple with me, and I'm dead too. Do you understand that he would think he's a hero jumping on her and forcing her to couple? He'd say, you're welcome. I just saved your life and mine too. Well, ultimately, she's not going to feel like that. She's going to say, you just raped me is what you did and forced a coupling. I didn't even give you permission. And she doesn't even realize what she's saying, because she certainly maybe wants to die instead. And truly, she's that illogical that she'll just be mad about what he literally did to her. It wasn't fair. And she's not even looking at the truth. He saved her life and his too. She can't see it like that. She certainly won't. I guarantee you. There's no woman that's going to thank a man for raping her so they could have a baby because he must have been Jesus Christ. She won't certainly know that baby was Jesus Christ, or he had to come, or the man thought so, or didn't even know. Or how ridiculous is it to think that a man who rapes a woman might tell the judge, that's Jesus Christ. We can't not have that baby. I don't care if she said, no, we're going to have that baby. Well, ultimately, you couldn't convince a judge or a jury that you were trying to make Jesus Christ become into this world, so you had to do it anyways. So they're certainly going to tell you that Jesus Christ don't need to come to this world. You certainly can't rape your wife and force her to have Jesus Christ. So he can't come. We don't want him. Okay, fine. Well, understand that's the logic behind why we're all going to fight and be totally ridiculous. Okay, now, coupling and information sharing are two concepts required to be a fact before conception, allowed before life is allowed, which means if you don't couple properly, you are dead before you even get to live, and you won't get to live. And if you don't share information, you will be absolutely punished and guaranteed to be punished in some small sickness or disease to some fatal death of some bad disease or plague. Guaranteed that you'll be punished by sickness or plague by refusing to share information to some degree. You'll be punished for it, guaranteed. And that means everybody. That's just the way God set it up. Because you can't come to this world if you don't share information properly and couple properly. You may not be conceived or come into my world. Not ever. Okay, so let's say this actual being gets to come to life now because it did share information right. It's healthy. My God, you mean you shared information correctly? You two got along and cooperated? I'm surprised. It's a shock. You mean you guys can get along actually? I didn't think so. Okay, but we did. We shared information line for line. We did the sequencing perfectly. We cooperated. Each of us shared our two halves of the information, put it together, and the fetus became alive and healthy and no problem. Oh, I'm proud of you two. You can become a baby and become alive in this world then, and you're healthy. Good for you. I'm proud. You did it. Okay, so the baby comes into this world and is now here. And I'm going to tell you the concepts for information sharing and coupling have not been to not be reconsidered. No, those two things will be why you're going to be punished and the whole world's going to die, because he didn't say after you come here, you can continue you could suddenly not share information anymore or stop coupling. He said, when you come into this world, I only allowed you to live because you coupled or you shared information. And I punish you for any small amount of information you refuse to share. And I punish you fatally if you refuse to share too much information. You'll die for it. Because if you keep too many secrets, I will kill you for it, literally. And if you keep only some secrets, I'll punish you for it somewhat. I didn't want information being not shared between all of you. And I did not want any of you to think you could keep secrets from each other and not share information. I did not give you permission to hold secrets from each other. And ultimately, if he did, then he'd also say, and anybody that I did want to be holding secrets and not sharing information, well, you know who you are. And I'm not talking about you. And if you're there, then if I seem to be a hypocrite, God, because I'm telling you, yeah, there are some that are not going to be telling some of my secrets and guarantee it. And so they're not allowed to. So we're not going to share that information. Only I'm allowed to not share that information. And if I'm God, I'm going to say only I'm allowed to say I no information sharing, depending on what it is. So if you don't want to share information, it better be coming from God saying that, because then you're okay. Because if you don't want to share it, then you better not share it. But the reality is, he's trying to say we're not focused on the fact that information sharing is something that needs to take place. It's something that's not taking place. It's ultimately a problem because of it's not taking place. And the fact that secrets should be kept and God wants that truth to happen, he's not talking about that. He's saying the information sharing you're not sharing is what's pissing me off. So you need to share it. And then he's saying that if I've got secrets, that's none of your business. And of course, I've got lots of secrets. And so you won't be sharing that information. I'm not a hypocrite. Don't look at them and say, what are you doing? You're not telling us about that. There's lots of things I won't tell you about. But that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm pissed at you for not sharing information. I didn't say I'm pissed at you for holding secrets. I said I'm pissed at you for holding secrets that you shouldn't be holding. And I'm not pissed at you for holding secrets that you should be holding, because you should be holding the secrets I'm not pissed at you for holding. And I'm pissed at you for holding a bunch of secrets you're not supposed to be holding. You're supposed to be sharing them. And now because you didn't share them, the whole world's fighting and arguing and people are suffering. And they're ultimately going to fight to the death and no one's going to care and everyone's hopeless. Everyone's becoming hopeless. There's no hope for this world when the information we need is not out there, not with us, and not coming to us. There's no hope for us. We're all going to die, guaranteed. Okay. Now, let me see here. Okay, I'm feeling hurt right now, and my feelings are hurt. I feel some tension, a problem, a situation in my head that feels disturbed. Emotionally, I feel disturbed right now. And I'm trying to deal with these feelings in my head that are disturbed, highly disturbed right now. I'm trying to calm them down a little bit and tell them to relax a little bit and say that it's going to be okay. That like, maybe if it's not going to be okay, I want you to know the truth. It's not going to be okay, but I'm telling you the truth. If it's not going to be okay, you can't really know that truth, even if it is true, because I'm telling you that it might be that I can make it okay, even though it can't be made okay. And we both know that right now. We're both pretty bumming out and hopeless about it and feeling despondent and maybe, holy shit, depressed and hopeless. We all know the truth. Understand that if there is a possibility that this could be fixed at all, understand we already know it cannot be, and there's no possibility. We could feel that truth. It's a fact. So we already both know how hopeless this goddamn situation is for the human race. It's definitely hopeless. But the fact is that if there's any hope for it, someone's going to try to do something. And ultimately, God tells me that this world is going down fast, like a plane crashing to the ground on fire. So this world is going down in flames, guaranteed. All of it, all of us, because what he's saying is that not only are we not obeying the coupling principle, which is required for life. You may not have life if you will not couple properly. People, I will take it from you, utterly punish you, taking it from you. So wait a minute, God, you're going to literally freaking kill us if we will come into this world as a condition that we have to couple. And then as soon as we're conceived, we uncouple, at least emotionally and mentally. If you do, and I'm telling you, many of you are, and not only is it pissing me off and it's punishable by death, but I didn't kill all of you doing it. I'm looking at you and I'm pissed saying you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You're supposed to be coupled, not uncoupling on purpose after you're alive now. It's almost like a ha-ha, God, too late. I don't have to couple now. Well, no, you want to die for that kind of attitude? That ha-ha is going to get you killed. So ultimately, that's the fear we have to know and understand. I'm not threatening anybody, and understand that I'm not saying God's going to kill anybody. What I'm saying is he doesn't want to kill anybody. He wants to save people. Don't think that this country is okay or going to make it. And I don't think I'm going to make it. I certainly am not going to make it. I'm already aware of it. I've been told by God himself that I have much less of a chance than this country ever does to make it. None of us are going to make it, guaranteed. And he also promised me that he'd help me make it as much as I could, meaning that he'd said, if anyone's going to survive, none of us are going to be okay. And ultimately, if we uncouple after conception, we are absolutely, no, you are wrong and you are violating. So understand that people actually try to uncouple after they come into this world because they can't stand coupling and have to couple to come to this world as a result of a requirement. They're like, damn, I had to come to this world and couple with her and be like, oh, now I get to live. And oh my God, now I'm a baby and I can uncouple. And yeah, and I have to do it now, right? No, you have to do it. You may not undo it, or you will piss me off and I will be not happy with you. And you may die for how unhappy I get with you, depending on what you're doing. Ultimately, if you uncouple and whatever you're doing, it's going to be bad influence on the world. And if you're uncoupled and you're doing something like you're literally promoting uncoupling, or yeah, I'm saying that I'm not promoting uncoupling. I'm promoting coupling, even if you can't do it. And as a sperm in the testicles, you can't do it because you have to get to the egg and have conception happen before you can couple. If the sperm in the nuclear strand of the DNA cannot couple until it can't get to her, it can't couple with her until it is coupled with her. It's not coupled with her. It will say, I can't do it until it's done. It'll have to do it, make it done to say it's done now. Now I can do it. Do what? Share information with her. But wait a minute, you can't share any information before? I'm programmed to find her and get on top of her and couple with her by force if she doesn't like it, because she often doesn't like it. So I'm told my programming as a singular strand of DNA is to be like a God coming in and saying, I don't get with her, I get on her, and she does what I want. I'll couple with her by force, and ultimately she'll take me. And ultimately that kind of behavior is an aggressive deity. It's the sperm saying, I'm God, I'm not with her, I get to live. Wait a minute, you mean the sperm gets to live without being coupled? The only DNA in your man's body that gets to live and is allowed to exist and is not murdered and killed by God is the sperm in a man's testicles. It's also why it's held outside the body. Why your testicles are not allowed to be inside you, it's because that DNA has to hang out in a sac outside the body. So the fact of the matter is that you have DNA in you, all over you, in every place. It's all in the form of autosomes and paired DNA. And the sperm in your testicles is not paired. It's the only place that it's not paired. And it's also not allowed to exist. It's not allowed to live, and it shall not have permission to be alive. Well, wait a minute. You're telling us that literally after conception, all chromosomes and all forms of DNA have to be paired? They must be paired or they die. If the mitochondria doesn't kill them off, the immune system will. Any singularity in your body that is in the form of DNA will be sperm or dead and dying, removed, because your body's immune system goes around killing any singularity in your body that's not sperm. And the reason why sperm don't die and get killed in your body by your immune system is because it's not in your body. It's outside your body. Believe it or not, the reason why your immune system doesn't destroy all your sperm is because they're hanging outside the body just a few inches. It's enough for your immune system to leave your testicles alone when it's killing off every singularity everywhere else. Singularity doesn't survive. It will not. But if it's a God, it does. And it will, because it's singularity, which means that the sperm is a form of DNA that's a mental singularity of what comes from a God. It's a masculine male presence in the spirit, which is single by itself. It doesn't couple with her. It did not couple with her. And its instruction is not to share any information with her until after coupling. And it may not even know that, which means it won't share until after the coupling takes place. It will try to couple with her, and it won't share information with her until after the coupling. She will want the information before the coupling, so she'll refuse to want to let him couple because she'll want to have a talk with him and saying, what do you got to share with me before you jump on top of me and couple with me? He'll say, I don't got anything to tell you. I'm just going to jump on you and couple. She's going to say, no, I don't think so, buddy. So understand they have a problem. She doesn't want to let him couple with her until he tells her what the hell's going on. And he doesn't tell her anything until after the coupling. So after the coupling takes place, the sperm now coupled with the other side, the nuclear strand of DNA in the man, coupled with now the mitochondrial strand in the woman, becoming one. He's coupled. Now he's with her and they're one. And he tells her now everything. Okay, now understand I saved your life and I saved my life. We're both dead for sure if we don't couple. Do you understand, woman? Well, understand if she understood that, she would know it's true. God says it absolutely is the truth. They're both dead. Those two entities will not survive, and they are going to die. He's going to die in the body, her body, trying to find that strand of mitochondrial DNA that she has. And if he don't find it, he dies. After a certain time, the sperm can't survive. It has to find it in a certain period of time or dies. and she'll be ejected by her period. Her strand will be ejected when she has her menstruation period, and a new strand will arrive, and God will tell that new strand, if you don't couple with the next sperm that comes by, you're dead too. I'll throw you out of the body, and I'll put another strand in place that might do it. So understand that the whole menstruation period of a woman is a punishment basically to the strand if after 30 days, or yeah, she's having sex with men, hopefully, and to create babies, and ultimately if she's not getting pregnant, then understand why. Because her strand is refusing to couple, then it has to die in the menstruation process and be ejected. So a new one could be put there. So see if it wants to couple. It's the process of menstruation. Understand that the programming of a mitochondrial strand of DNA in the ovaries is protected by the ovaries, like a kind of in a jail cell. So the mitochondrial strand is in a cell being housed, and it's in the ovaries being housed in the woman's body. So the ovaries are kind of like a prison, and the cell that's in the ovaries is the egg. It's like a prison cell. It's housing the mitochondrial strand, and she's like a prisoner in there, which means that the mitochondrial strand is like a prisoner sitting in one spot in the cell, in the egg, and it doesn't get to go anywhere or do anything. It has to wait for the sperm to come to it, and then the sperm's the one that is doing all the moving around and coming to it. So she's literally not able to get to the sperm. She couldn't do it if she wanted to. Certainly the sperm has to find her, and it's its mission to find her. If it doesn't find her, well, it fails, and then she dies, and he dies. Ultimately, then the baby doesn't get to even live. Okay. Now, okay. Okay, I'm going to talk about something for a second that maybe has nothing to do with genetics. So I'm changing the subject for a minute. Um, in Vietnam, I was a soldier, 19 years old, in 1967, a soldier in Vietnam. I was a helicopter door gunner in Vietnam in 1967, and I had been a driver for a company commander before that. And so I was a 19-year-old kid in Vietnam, and a, a driver for a commander for the base at first when I got there. And so my job was to drive the commander around. I felt important, and got to be, driving a driver. And I was driving someone around really high ranking and really special. So he was like a whole base commander, and basically wherever I drove him to and he went, it was like an important parade of all these helicopters. We had escorts, and we had tanks, and we had everything. So we had like an army of wherever he went, the army went, and basically he was protected. So when I first got to Vietnam, I was with the commander driving for him, and I was protected. And I was pretty protected. My chances of dying were little because we went out in the combat field, in the combat zone, and basically we had we had protection all the way, man. We had helicopters, many of them, all over the place, man. We had jeeps and trucks and tanks and protection and infantry, and we were just surrounded by protection. So it was all awesome. But I drank alcohol and did drugs, and so I got caught driving and drinking, and he smelled it on me, and he told me, if you get caught smelling like alcohol again as my driver, I'll fire you, and I'll put you in a place where you could drink all you want and do all the drugs you want to do, boy. And ultimately, when he told me that, I took it like he was telling me that, well, hey, you're drinking, I'll fire your ass you can't be my driver. And ultimately, if you want to go find some job and be assigned a place where you can get as drunk as you want and do all the drugs you want, I took that as like, really? Like, I'd like to see that, because I wasn't allowed to do drugs. He told me I can't drink. I was wanting to drink, and I can't. So basically, I almost just fell into some ridiculousness of thinking that, whoa, maybe I should get reassigned, and he'll put me somewhere where I can drink all I want and do all the drugs I want. That'd be cool. I'd love to do it. And ultimately, I really was being stupid and ignorant because he caught me with alcohol in my breath again, and I kind of was letting it happen because I'm just gonna get fired, and I'll just let him resign me to wherever he's talking about. And it's just an ignorance that got me killed because eventually got me killed. It ultimately put me in a bad place because he reassigned me. He fired me as his driver, which was a privileged position. I should have never lost it. I should have protected the possibility I could lose it. I had it made, and ultimately, suddenly he said you're reassigned as a helicopter door gunner. Go report to this place. Helicopter door gunner? Yeah, you can drink as much as you want, do all the drugs you want. I certainly don't give a shit what you do. I won't tell those helicopter door gunners to do anything, but whatever they want, because they can do whatever they want. They're certainly going to be needing to do what they do. So ultimately, the helicopter door gunners, they didn't care if you drank or did drugs, and the helicopter door gunners had a 2 week lifespan, which meant that literally a helicopter door gunner in Vietnam was probably somebody that lasted a couple of weeks or a month. They were either killed or shot, and they were in a hospital somewhere, replaced by a new helicopter door gunner. And the helicopter door gunners were replaced so often that you just didn't see a helicopter door gunner just still doing their job a month later. If you saw a helicopter door gunner, well, a month later, the same helicopter had a different gunner in it because you knew what happened to him. And they always were seeing that there was no gunners that ever stayed in the helicopter very long. If a helicopter door gunner was in a helicopter 2 months, wow, you're an old man. You've made 2 months. Yeah, we all are going to get shot and replaced, and in a hospital, we'll be injured or dead. That's what happens. Ultimately, it was not only dangerous to be a helicopter door gunner, it was almost insane because it was where the bullets fly into, where they shoot to, and ultimately it went to go seek the enemy out in the field, which meant that a helicopter door gunner was about the most dangerous thing you could do. And I thought I wanted to drink and do drugs and be able to, because it's just one of the few places where they don't care as long as those helicopter door gunners didn't get drunk to the point where couldn't do their job. If they could do their job, they certainly let them drink and let them do all the drugs they want. If you could perform well, and then we don't care what you do because we understand it's a dangerous job, and maybe you need to drink. Ultimately, maybe you need to do drugs. That was pretty much the untold truth, that maybe you do need to drink and do drugs, and we won't say anything because your job's dangerous and you probably won't live. We won't bother you. Ultimately, the helicopter door gunners had a respect where they got to be someone special because they just didn't have much of a lifespan. People kind of thought like, wow, you are awesome. We're going to treat you with some respect. You're a helicopter. Wow. Because, yeah, I probably won't live. Yeah, that's why I'm so special, because they all know it. So pretty much it didn't feel very good at all to be like knowing that you probably didn't have a chance. Or you had a little chance and you can't last long. What the hell am I doing this for? And ultimately, I tried to get out of it. And ultimately, I didn't want to be a helicopter door gunner. And the fact was, I didn't have a choice. And I was a 19-year-old kid that was put behind a gun in a helicopter, told he could do whatever he wants, all the drugs he wants, all the drinking he wants. We don't care what you do, but you just better do your job. His job was to shoot the enemy and suppress fire when they went into LZs. And ultimately, they went into every hot LZ to pick up injured people or to drop off soldiers that were going to be assault forces into whatever place. So basically, it was putting me in direct fire every day and absolutely as all the time. So I was like literally in a place where it was definitely not going to be okay. And the story that okay, there was like terrifying fear that overcame me that I had to deal with as a helicopter door gunner and a kid. I was trying to be a man, and I was desperately trying to be brave and strong, and I was like scared shitless and terrified. The truth was, I felt like I didn't want to die, and I certainly thought a bullet was going to hit me in the head. And when I went out in that helicopter and into battle, I certainly every minute thought that this bullet was going to nail my forehead, and I was like, the feeling was like, I can't do this, man. I'm hiding behind my gun, and I'm like, man, this is freaking crazy. I can't even shoot, man. Ultimately, I had to struggle with terrifying feelings of accepting death, and I couldn't accept it. I couldn't come to terms with it. I was like a kid behind the gun, and many of the first times I was hiding and I couldn't shoot, and I'd have to make myself shoot because they'd tell me you better fucking shoot. And ultimately I'd try to get up and shoot, and then I'd be crazy. And ultimately I'd hide behind the gun again. And it was because I was scared shitless. I was a boy trying to be a man. And I was just acting whatever I could to do it desperately, doing drugs to try to curb my fear, taking alcohol to drink alcohol, try to keep my calm while I'm freaking dying or almost dead every day in complete fear and terror, trying to deal with it. I was traumatized emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And the fact that I was a 19-year-old kid and I didn't even want to be fighting Vietnam War. I didn't want to be in a helicopter shooting people. And I didn't want to be in a war killing anyone. I certainly didn't want to kill any Vietnamese, and I didn't want to be killed myself. So the reality was, I felt forced to be in this war. I felt that it's not fair that you're killing innocent Vietnamese, and it comes from my trigger finger. I said that it's your fault. You should be paying for everybody I kill. And I also felt guilty for everybody I might have killed. I'm sure I killed lots of people, and understand I even killed lots of people a couple times, maybe when they didn't deserve it, or even if they were innocent civilians because I was drunk and shooting my gun. Stupid. So sometimes when we were flying in the helicopters, I would be drunk and angry and mad at God, mad at my country, mad at why am I here having to fight a war I don't even want to have to fight. I didn't ask for this war. It's not my problem. It's your problem. It's your war. Ultimately, I couldn't deal with those feelings that I can't stand to be here. And it's your fault that I'm here and I'm going to die here. And it's going to be your fault. Ultimately, that's pretty messed up. And I was trying to deal with all those feelings. I couldn't. I certainly couldn't deal with it. And so I literally did too much drugs, did too much drinking. And a couple times I overdid it. Like I got too drunk on my gun and I didn't perform well. And when they saw that I was drunk or too drunk or did too many drugs, like he's not handling it. Like that gunner is like, he's failing, man. And he's failing. When you go into an LZ, you better be shooting and you better not be hiding behind that gun. Ultimately, I was trying to shoot. But sometimes I was hiding behind the gun. When you have a helicopter, when you have bullets coming into the goddamn door of your helicopter and that's coming in a stream of automatic fire and they're ricocheting off the goddamn inside of the helicopter, do you think you want to stick your head up? Are you going to dare stick your head up into the path of one of them bullets? No, you're not. So the fact that I cowered behind that gun was because my life was still alive. I understand if I stuck my head up, I'm dead. And I knew it. But they're telling me, put your head up and fire, and I don't care if you're dead. So it was ultimately that I have to stick my head into the bullet fire and into the stream of bullets because they're saying, I don't care if you get hit, boy, but you better get up and shoot. And that they were telling me that if you don't do your job and you put this helicopter at risk and ultimately you put all of our lives at risk, you either freaking do your job or we'll throw you out of this helicopter at high altitude. And ultimately, so my own people with me, I was feeling like were not even my friends because they were definitely telling me that I need to get up and do my job, especially if it kills me. And they didn't care if I died. They were telling me just die like a good boy, do your job. You're a soldier. You're supposed to die. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm a soldier. I'm supposed to die. You're out of your mind. I don't even want this war. I certainly don't want to be here doing this at all. And it's your fault. You're making me do this. So I blamed him big time. Okay. I try to take importance of any kind to achieve a feeling of confidence within me and it comes off like a superior sense of spirit or value within me. So it's like having a mission to perform and feeling like you're on your mission and you have a great purpose and you're important and you're doing a job for God and it's all great. Well, I strive to bring that feeling to me as if it's the only thing in my world that I care about because my purpose in this world is to be important, to perform my mission successfully, whatever it is, and to absolutely do it in a manner which it happens and I carry it out quickly and absolutely so it makes God pleased with me and I'm doing what God wants me to do and ultimately I'm not getting paid for it whatsoever. Uh, it's okay, but it's not okay. He says that I'm not getting paid for it. It's just that no one's going to pay me for it and God could pay me for it. So he's going to pay me for it. And how he pays me is between me and him. And he tells me that it'll certainly be that while you're struggling and you're not being paid for it yet, you're being paid in many ways. And a lot of the ways that I get paid are that God's talking to me all the time and showing me and telling me stuff and give me advice and being my friend or my dad and my guide and helping me. So he tells me things to comfort me and make me not feel scared or worried. He'll tell me, Like, it's okay because of this reason. Like I'm here with you, so don't worry because you're all right. And I'm like, wow, okay. If it's real, then that's pretty good to have his comfort. Him telling you he's going to protect you or he's going to make it all right. Don't worry, you won't die. And he tells me that a lot of what happened in Vietnam to me makes me think I'm going to die. And I'm certainly feeling like I can't possibly survive. I'm going to be toast. And he's telling me that my spirit is thinking that because it already knows what happened in Vietnam. I can remember it. I was toast. And so ultimately I died because the third helicopter crash I got into was at high altitude. And ultimately God told me that if he comes and if he told me the day before I got into a fatal helicopter crash and died in 1967 as a 19-year-old kid. He told me the night before, in my heart, he was talking my heart, and I was sitting in my barracks back at the base, drinking Budweiser and just trying to get drunk to feel okay because I was using alcohol to feel okay because I didn't feel okay if I wasn't drinking. I drink all the time to feel okay, and I was not okay sober. And so certainly I probably was drunk all the time somewhat. And he told me in my feelings as he talked to my heart, he said, I am going to kill you tomorrow night. And first, I'm going to come to you and you're going to see me and you're going to see my face. And then after, I'm going to kill you and you're going to die. And I want you to know that tomorrow you're going to see God and you're going to know who he is. And he's going to come to you. He's me. And I'm going to absolutely show you myself. So there's no doubt in your mind that you're going to see my face and it'll be okay. And it was exactly what I wanted. I'm going to be able to see God tomorrow. I didn't know what he was telling me. It was in my feelings. He was telling me to my heart. He was telling my feelings. So whatever he was saying to me, I didn't hear words. I wasn't sure what it was. I'm telling you what he said exactly, quote, word for word, if I actually knew what he was saying, actually. Now I do, but I didn't then. So then I only had a feeling in my heart that was saying, I don't know, is God talking to me right now? What's he saying? Well, I don't know what he's saying, but I feel what he's saying. What is it? I had to interpret that feeling. And it was that I get to see God tomorrow night. I think I get to see God tomorrow night. That's awesome. I was like, are you kidding me? I can't believe it. That's what I want to do, see God. And ultimately, I was also had this other feeling that was like, wait a minute, I hope I don't die. Am I going to die tomorrow? And that was pretty much what I think I want to see God. And that's good, but am I going to die? I didn't know what exactly he was telling me, but it was like, that's what I felt like, what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, it could be really good. And wow, I'd never seen God before, but I'd love to see his face. And then am I going to die? And and I didn't know. He said, if you see my face, you'll be dead and you'll die for seeing my face. Cause I don't show no man my face. If he doesn't die afterwards, I come to you when you die. I'll come to you to comfort you at your time of death. And some of you, I won't come to you at all. And you die miserably, unhappy, and uncomfortable and scared out of your mind. And I don't want to do that to everybody. That's actually somebody I want to comfort. So God comes to us when we die. He'll actually show up and show himself. And it'll only be one time in our whole life that we get to see him. Because he's only going to do it that one time. When you're dead, I'll come see you and kind of guide you, tell you what's up, so you can be okay with it. So most people that see God when they're going to die are okay with it. They certainly believe it's God coming to them because they see him and they know it's him. So they're saying, wow, okay, so he'll tell them you're going to die. It's okay. You're coming with me. Don't worry. And ultimately you'll be like, okay, I believe that it's actually you. So I'm going to try not to worry. So people can die and it's okay. They're not going to worry too much if they're with God. If God comes to them, it'll be all right. Now, I don't think I knew any of this or would have known anything about it. But I certainly don't want God not to come to me when I die. I certainly don't want to be by myself dying. And I certainly don't want to be dying in fear or terror or by myself without him, alone. And if I have to die alone without God, by myself in fear or terror, I'm saying that's not right. Don't tell me I have to die that way. Because that's the one way I don't want to be dying. Well, I mean, if God could tell you that, well, don't worry. I won't require you to die in fear and terror alone by yourself without me and my presence or anything else or anyone else. But if it happens, it's because you're alone by yourself and your presence is obviously not wanting anyone else. But I'll be there. So the next night, I was up in the sky. We were about 6 miles high. And He said 6 miles high. And I was like, wait a minute, Hueys are 6 miles high? Yeah, 6 miles high, a Huey. Well, if its ceiling's 14,000 feet, basically we're up as high as we can go. Maybe we tried to go up 20,000 feet, 25,000 feet, but don't tell me we didn't try it. We certainly tried to get up so high that we couldn't take any ground fire because they couldn't possibly even see us. And ultimately, the Hueys would sometimes fly really high to get out of the firing range of ground fire. And so we were way up at night, up high in a group of helicopters. And the 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 crash of the helicopter was my third crash. I got in two crashes before in Vietnam. The first crash was because God wanted to scare the shit out of me. I was feeling like I was an invincible 19-year-old kid. In the first crash I got into in Vietnam, it happened low altitude, and ultimately I was being a badass 19-year-old fool who was shooting his gun during the time between we would get from one place to the other. I would be drunk and doing drugs and trying to listen to music and feel good and screaming and yeah, while we're in the helicopter, feeling like I'm a badass. And ultimately, I would shoot my gun just for the hell of it because I was like, yeah, I'm having fun. This is awesome. Like I'm a badass. And ultimately, a couple times. In a paddy field, or there was a village that we were flying by, and I was in that kind of a position in my mind where I was being a fool, and I was shooting into the just whatever, and I shot into the village, just sprayed it, and like yeah, and then God came to me and said, "You son of a sob, what the hell are you doing?" And I was just saying like, "What?" I didn't even know what God was coming to me to tell me that. Like I didn't even know God was with me. All I knew was I was having fun behind the gun, and I was drinking, and I was trying to feel better and listen to music, and I was trying to help myself feel better. So I was feeling better. I was feeling good, and I wanted just to shoot the gun because it was fun. It was ultimately yeah. And then I did, but it happened to be pointing towards the village, my gun's muzzle. So I was basically like, it's way far away. That village was so far, and like I just shot it for a second, and no bullets hit anybody. You son of a bitch. Look what you just did. What the hell are you doing? I didn't do much, did I? I'm having fun. You just freaking killed people. I didn't kill anyone. You just freaking killed people, you ass. You punk. You just killed innocent people. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know you're talking to me. Okay, so now I'm getting really in trouble by God because I'm in that helicopter being a dumbass, and I was trying to make myself feel better. I didn't think I was being a dumbass. I thought I was actually trying to make myself feel better. I deserve to feel better. Well, I know, but you shot your gun into pointing it towards a village, and it could have killed people. And I'm telling you, you're a dumbass. And what the hell are you doing? And you're not supposed to be shooting at villages that are not even considered BC. Well, okay, well, I know, but I didn't kill anybody, did I? He was mad at me. Certainly, he was mad, and I didn't know he was talking to me. So that interaction that happened in the helicopter when God came to me and was mad at me and saying, "You son of a sob boy, you punk," he was like literally pissed, and he was telling me you were behaving not only not okay, but what you just did is punishable by anything, death, or I could kill you. This helicopter could explode right now. I could give you a heart attack. I could kill you outright in any way I want. You have just behaved in a manner which is not okay, and I do not accept it, and I do not forgive it. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I don't even know you're telling me this." All I was doing was in the helicopter feeling good one minute after I shot the gun. And then I kind of laid back and I felt like I was being attacked. And I was thinking of my sister and my mom, and I was feeling, oh my God, I'm having an anxiety attack now. And I was in the helicopter thinking, my God, what's wrong with me? Give me some more beer. And ultimately, I couldn't make myself feel better. And I was literally freaking out. So I just had this panic attack in the helicopter. After was feeling great, shot my gun off, and everything should have been fine, right? Well, no, I just had this panic attack. I didn't even relate it to what I did, or it was that I shot the gun off, or that God was talking to me. I didn't know God was talking to me. I had a panic attack in the helicopter. Literally, I couldn't help myself. I was freaking out, but nobody saw me because we were in the helicopter. There was nobody there except they couldn't really see you in back. Nobody was witnessing what was happening to me. So I guess I could have my panic attack by myself and then flip out in the back seat. And literally, I did. I felt like I was dying or being killed or what the hell's wrong or I'm flipping out, and I didn't even know it was wrong. God was doing that to me. He's telling me, you son of a bitch, you're not supposed to be shooting at innocent people or killing people that aren't the people I want dead. And ultimately, I didn't know that he would be telling me that because I didn't even know that I did it. I thought I didn't do it. I certainly would have said I didn't hurt anybody, and maybe I didn't. So he's not saying I killed someone for sure. I'm telling you, he told me I'm not. Well, understand, I'm pissed at you for the fact that what you did is not okay. And that would have been why I crashed the first time in the helicopter. He said, if you are going to be behaving like the way you are, and of course, guess what I told him? I said, look, I can't even talk to you. You don't even talk to me. I'm talking to you in my feelings. This relationship is dead to me. I don't even know that I'm talking to you right now. This is how I talk to God in my feelings. I was not witness to it. My brain wasn't involved. I didn't know I was even talking to him or what I would be saying or what he would be telling me. Understand that the interaction I was having with God was happening in my heart with my feelings only. And what it was to me was a torment. And it was ultimately not just a punishment, but an absolute torture because I was like, I don't even know how to interpret these feelings. I'm not even sure if God's talking to me. But if he is, I don't know what he's quite saying. And I have to interpret what he might be saying. Maybe my interpretation is wrong. And I don't even know what he's saying. And if I assume that he is telling me anything, I'm in trouble. I certainly don't know for sure what it is. I can guess, but it'll just be guess. Do you understand that there's nothing that could bring confidence to an absolute relationship with God that's not even allowed while it's being carried out? I'm not even allowed to see God or know God or even know I'm talking to him or he's even talking to me. It's ridiculous. So I would tell God, I am not going to do this. I'm not doing anything you want because you don't even come to me and talk to me, show me your face. And I told him that my feelings, and I certainly didn't know I said anything. I was mad at him, and I was thinking, I don't even know I'm mad, but whatever, I'm mad. Don't tell me I'm not. He's like, you don't even know why you're mad. That's true. You don't know why you're mad. You're mad because you want a relationship with me. You want to see my face, and you want me to talk to you, and you want to see me. So you could say, yeah, you really are God. You really are here. That's what you want. That's what I want. Why can't you give it to me, God? Because I will not do it. When you're a punk kid shooting your gun off, acting irresponsibly, and you're not a priest, and you're not privileged, and you're not doing what I want or my will or what I say, why would I come to you and give you a privilege like you could have a relationship with me where it's going to give you confidence and make you unafraid, fearless, because it will. So you're going to keep me from being fearless and unafraid by not actually having a relationship with me that would bring fearlessness, and I wouldn't be afraid if you actually were here the way I wanted you to be, where I could see you. And yeah, I'm not going to give you that relationship, boy. And you're not even going to tell me, and I can't even understand any of this. It's a frustrating feeling. It's not understood. It's just a boy that's going to act out and doesn't even know why he's mad at God. He'll never even understand any of this. He'll just do the wrong thing, or he won't cooperate with God. And ultimately, he'll tell God that I'm just not going to cooperate with you because I'm just mad. And yeah. And he say, you're not my high priest. You don't get a privilege. I'm not going to come show myself to you. You don't get to have a relationship with me that great. I'm punished then. I'm cursed then. I'll die then. Well, then that's not my fault. That's your fault. And so when I was in that helicopter, God came to me. And I was in that helicopter, and it was right before I got hit up high. The missile that hit us from a Laws rocket, or it was from an RPG, but it was a missile that hit the helicopter I was in, and it didn't come from the ground. We were way high, supposedly 6 miles up, is what I was told. And it's hard to believe that a helicopter could get that high. And ultimately, if 14,000 feet is the ceiling of a helicopter, well, I think 6 miles high is like 25,000 feet. It doesn't make any sense. But what I'm telling you is God told me it was 6 freaking miles high that you were up there. You guys climbed so high, you went as high as those helicopters could possibly freaking go. And it was because you're trying to avoid ground fire. Ultimately, the helicopters then got hit. Anyways, it wasn't from the ground. It was from one of the other helicopters, guaranteed. And a missile hit the helicopter. When the helicopter exploded, I was in it. I had a strap on, and ultimately, it blew me the hell out of the helicopter instantly. And my strap was blown to pieces. I don't know how I got detached from it, but obviously, it wasn't even useful. And when I got blown out of the helicopter, I hit the skid of the helicopter so hard, my flight jacket went right down the end of the skid. And I know it's hard to believe. Understand, God told me the whole story. And exactly what happened. He said, when you got blown out of that helicopter and that skid of that helicopter, the skid is the little skids, the ones that land, that skid, the end of that skid, I got blown out of the helicopter and my flight jacket caught it and it went up my back and it went down my spine. That skid slid down my spine, in between my spine and my flight jacket. And I was pinned, hanging on the end of that skid. Now, completely pinned to it. And the helicopter just got hit by the RPG or Laws rocket. And I'm on the end of the skid now, underneath it. So you can't even believe this. This is not believable. How in the hell am I underneath a skid on a helicopter? I'm outside of it on the skid, underneath it. So I'm hanging on to the helicopter. It had my flight jacket all the way up, and I was pinned to it very good. I wasn't coming off. And basically God showed himself right there to me. And he showed himself in a way that was like no mistake. When I was on the end of that skid, I saw him. He came to me. I don't know how it was. He was floating in the sky. I don't know what it was, but I can't remember I don't have a memory of it exactly. He told me the story, and my feeling is it's exactly the fact that I was on the end of that skid and God showed himself to me. However God would show himself to you, guaranteed, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. He was right in front of my face. I could see his face. And suddenly I realized, God, you're really here right now. He came to me on the end of that skid and was with me. And he said, I'm with you and I'm God. And do you see my face? And I did. And I knew it was him, no doubt. And I was feeling kind of much comforted instantly because I was saying, God has showed up, and my God, I can't believe it. God's here. I can't believe it. And ultimately, I wasn't even thinking about my own death yet. I was kind of oblivious to it. I was on the end of that skid, and God told me, you're going to die now, and I want you to be okay, and don't be afraid, because I'm with you, and I'm here right now. Can you see my face? And I could. And I'm like, I can see your face. He said, be calm and understand that you're going to come back next lifetime, and you're going to be allowed to talk to me. And I'm going to show you my face then, and I won't punish you for it or kill you for it. But right now, you have done nothing I asked, and you are a temper tantrum child that's a boy in a man's body, and you're insisting on being mad at me and blaming me for everything. He told me basically everything. He said, you are not a high priest of mine. You are not privileged. You're not the Pope. You're not anyone that's going to have privileges to see my face. And I'm showing you my face right now because you're going to die. And it's the only time you're going to get to see it. And that goes for everyone. And I was like, wow, that's pretty bumming. Like I can't fix it. I don't know. Do you think hanging out in the skid of a helicopter at this point, do you think you could fix it, boy? What's the chances that in the situation you're underneath the skid of a helicopter and it's just been hit by an RPG and it's going down? It happens to be 6 miles up in the sky. It's really high, so it's not going down quick. It's going down at an angle, and it's still the propeller was still rolling, and it was also going up because when we got hit, the throttle got locked into the full position. I'm not lying. This really happened. The throttle got locked into the full position of the helicopter, like when it hit us. And the helicopter, when it got hit, went and started climbing fast. And it was climbing at a high rate of speed, like at full throttle. I don't think the pilot was alive. I don't think the co-pilot was alive. I think they were both dead. But the throttle had gone to full throttle, and a helicopter just happened to be climbing high at its high rate. So I'm on that helicopter when it got hit, and I'm not going down. I was going up. How could you believe that truth? Well, God said that's exactly what happened. And I made that helicopter go up because I had some time to talk to you, and I didn't want the helicopter to crash until after I was done telling you what's going on. So basically, God's keeping the helicopter from going down too fast because he's talking to me while I'm on the end of that skid, and he's telling me that I demanded to see his face and told him I can't cooperate with him no matter what, that I'll never listen to him. And I don't even know what I'm saying right now. So it's not my fault, and it should be his fault, because I'm just stubbornly going to be like, my heart's destroyed and I'm too traumatized, and it's his fault. It has to be. I'm going to die again, and it's his fault, and I'll do it again next lifetime and the one after that. I'm never going to learn, God. I'm never going to learn. It's your fault. Show your face to me and give me your presence and let me see you, and then I could be okay. No, it ain't going to happen like that, boy. But in the next life, he told me, I'll let you see my face. And he told me why. He said that I was a high priest of Apollo, the sun god, in the Trojan conflict during the Trojan War. He also told me that I was a Trojan prince, Helenus, who was Helenus himself, who was a brother of Hector, a son of Priam, a prince of Troy, also an augur, And as a high priest of Apollo, he had the privilege of talking to God. So what he told me was, I want you to know why you are having such a problem and why you're so damn freaking upset and blaming me. He said, because you were a high priest of the Apollo sun god in the Trojan conflict, and you were the Pope of Apollo. Also, Zeus, you could have been the Pope of Zeus, was his dad, but ultimately you were actually the Pope of Apollo. And that's the older son of Zeus. And I didn't follow Eris. And ultimately, I did not follow him either. Eris was the younger brother, and I had his older brother as my god, and ultimately I had a privileged position where I got to be talking to God every day, seeing his face. And Apollo would show up to me every day, and I'd have counsel with him, and he'd be actually a god that would be in my presence in a body that was like letting me see him and hear him and know him, and it was tangible and real, and it was the highest privilege of the highest priest, and only he gets it. I actually had that privilege and lived in company with a god as his high priest, the highest one. I was the highest one. There was nobody above me, and I was directly under the god himself. Helenus was my name, and I was a prince of Troy. I fought in the Trojan War, and I was told that I also fought next to Hector, and I also fought I directed whole battalions in war. I got wounded in battle by Menelaus, and it was as crazy as you want to think that any of this might be true or not. God told me this. He said, the reason why you are so upset at me and you're trying to say you deserve to see me and have a relationship with me, a privileged one, is because you actually had a privileged relationship with me once because I gave you that privilege once. And you want it back. Okay. I think you're right. I think what you just said is true. There's no doubt about it. Thank you. You're right. I do want it back. It's mine. It's my privilege. Is it not? It is. But while you're acting like a 19-year-old punk, a drunken idiot, against your mother, against your sister, fighting the divine feminine, against the divine feminine, and I don't care if you're for it or not, but I don't want you to be against it, utterly. While you're trying to be mad, take me, be angry, blame me, not cooperate, shoot innocent people, not even care what you're doing. You're a 19-year-old idiot, punk boy that's hiding in a man's body, and I love you. And I really do love you. But I'm not going to let you have the privilege that you deserve until you prove that you deserve it. So I was like, whoa. So this kid is this high priest of Apollo? Well, yeah. He's a kid that's angry that says he can't be a high priest of Apollo and sees God and has a relationship with him the way he once had it because he deserves it. The kid was mad and out of his mind. He couldn't help himself. Ultimately, God didn't blame him. He literally was feeling sorry for him, saying, I wish I could do it, but if you weren't so goddamn difficult with me, I would do it. So certainly he promised to do it next time. So the next life I was going to come into this world, God said he was going to show me his face and talk to me, and I wouldn't die. I would be able to live and have a relationship with him like the privileged priest Apollo. And Helenus had a relationship as a unique privilege. Helenus got to see his God, man. It was real. And it was certainly something that no other man gets to see. Apollo didn't show himself to people. The sun god Apollo wasn't going to let just anyone see him. He would let privileged people would get his presence, and people would ultimately not see him. They would only hear about him. He wouldn't show up talking in events. Sometimes he did actually. Understand that the behavior of what I'm just saying is the gods showed up much more when it was Apollo, but now the gods don't show up at all. They don't come to us ever. Back then, they might come to a group and let everyone see him once in a while. So when I was born here, I had a promise from God that was I get to see God, and I was going to keep him to that promise, and I forgot all about it. I forgot about that last life in Vietnam. I forgot all about what happened to me, all my trouble and what took place. But understand that I literally was traumatized. I was that kid. I'm still that kid in a sense. And understand I've been in all kinds of freaking crazy battle and killing and dying and experiencing death. And my spirit has experienced death so heavily that it's traumatized. It's definitely afraid. And it's terrified out of its mind. And I'm also brave as freaking, yeah, because when I have my God, there's no stopping me. And ultimately, I'm aware that if I have my God with me, I'm like fearless, and I'm like, wow, yeah, Colonel. I'm like George Custer. I'll charge into battle, and I ain't afraid of nothing. I'm like, yeah, like, so my bravery has everything to do with having my God. And my cowardice is just a matter of I don't have my God anymore. He left me. So I'm not a coward unless I don't have my God. And then I'm still not a coward. I just wouldn't be brave. I'd just go run away or something. Yeah, because if I have my God, I ain't going to run away. So bravery has everything to do with having your God with you. And if you don't, certainly you might not be a coward, but you won't be able to be brave without your God. At least that's what I'll tell you. You'll need him to be brave. It's what makes you brave and why you can even do it. Okay, about the time that I'm letting divine feminine rule and trying to respect her and not knowing that you can't share power is what God told me. That really power can't be shared between a man and a woman, because if it is, then there would have to be an equal coupling of two souls that are actually coupling. And actually, if they're coupled right, they'll share information. And if they share information right, it will be possible to share information or share power. So God says the only reason why it's even possible to share power is because you're coupled correctly and you're sharing information. And all information is being shared. There's no information being withheld. It's what makes the coupling possible. And because the information happens 100%, then both people do share the power, and it actually does work. It's as a result of sharing information utterly and the coupling being genuine also. So that means that people who are not able to actually share power are just people that are not actually able to couple, or they won't share information when they couple, and they both, one of them, they're suspicious of each other, or worse, utterly outright pissed. So if you hold secrets from me or don't share information with me, well, I can't be pissed at you for that, can I? I can find a reason to be pissed at you for anything. Just because you looked at me funny, that's good enough for me. So ultimately, because we violate each other by not sharing information with each other, well, we cause each other to be retaliating and reacting the way that we'll do it. And it means that God says that you guys are literally not logical when you're pissed at each other for what you don't even know you're doing to each other, and you do it. If you don't share information with each other, you'll certainly look at each other funny and fight for that reason alone. And you'll hate each other, not know why, but it certainly will be real hate. So understand that we know when we're not doing it, and we'll feel it. It certainly will be not unaware. And so if you just hate somebody for no reason, or there's just no reason why you're violently mad, understand, don't tell me there's no reason, is what God will say. You're not violently mad for no reason. You're violently mad for a direct, actual reason. And if you don't know it, you better know it. So it'll truly make you violently pissed off that your wife won't share certain information with you. It'll certainly make you violently pissed off and absolutely deceitful as hell, and love it if your husband is holding information from you that you need. And you can't damn blame him for not telling you whatever it is, because you can't accuse him of not telling you anything when he didn't say anything. You don't know what he's withholding. Maybe he isn't. So if he is, how do you accuse him of doing it? You can't, not unless you just hate him for no reason, or attack him for no reason, or kill him for no reason. There always is a reason. The divine feminine, if it's coupled properly with the divine masculine, then if they're actually sharing information and coupled right, it'll be a sharing of power as possible. God says in this world, a sharing of power is not possible between men and women, and it is your fault. And I am pissed off about it, and I will punish you for it, and sometimes by death. And I guarantee it, you will die for what you're doing, all of you. What are we doing? You are having relationships with each other as a society of men and women that are pretending to come together. So you're pretending to be coupled, and you're acting like you are, and even acting it out like it's happening. It's a ridiculous act of ridiculousness. It pisses me off to see two people pretending to be coupled when they're really not. It's an utter feeling of irritation and offense that comes to me to watch two people holding hands that are not even coupled whatsoever. It's disgusting, sick, and offends me. Don't dare hold hands with someone you're not even coupled with. Certainly you must feel it. Why would you do it? People will feel pressured to act like they're coupled when they're not. They'll even think they are. It'll offend God. and he'll say you're utterly doing everything wrong. How you're pissing me off. Well, okay, so what does that mean? If you would like to go around a society of men and women and pretend like you're coupled with each other, well, you are pissing me off. And now, if you want to say you are, or say that we're doing everything right, well, you're not doing anything right. You're going around pretending you're coupled and you're not coupled. And if you do couple yourselves correctly, I certainly don't. You don't have to act like you're coupled at all. If you're coupled correctly, well, then you could act like you're not coupled. I don't care, just as long as you are coupled. So then, what are you saying, that we could act like we're not coupled? I don't care how you act, as long as you're coupled. Just be coupled correctly. Then act whatever way you want. Okay, great. So you're just saying like, well, okay. So we have to be coupled. You better be coupled. I told you you can't live unless you're coupled, and it better be right. So you're saying that a man and woman can't share power because of what's happening. There's no coupling taking place properly. That's correct. And if I'm God and I'm telling you men and women in this world cannot share power, and I will not share power with any woman, it's because of what men and women are doing. And the cause of it is because what men and women are doing. It's not my fault, it's their fault. So the reason why I can't share power is because they can't share power. And the reason why they can't share it is because it's not going to be possible. Not if they're not going to couple right. It's about sharing the information. They don't share information with each other. Excuse me. They don't share information with each other. And for that reason, they're not cooperating or coupled right. They're in violation. In fact, they're completely pissing God off. And so couples who pretend to get along and they're not really having a good relationship pisses God off, actually pisses him off. If you're married and you're totally having a difficulty and you shouldn't even be together and you're still together, what the hell are you doing but pissing me off? You two are violating everything because you're with each other and both of you are irritated and offended by it. You're going to continue to do it like it's okay because of financial reasons or monetary reasons or whatever you get from it or keep from it or don't have to lose for it from it. Well, yeah, we're going to be with each other even though it's ridiculous. We shouldn't, right? And I'll be pissed off about it. Don't tell me I won't blame all of you because none of you are supposed to be allowed to live if you don't couple right. You certainly can't share power if you're not coupled right. And I can't share power if you're not coupled right. And I'm not coupled at all. And I'm not going to couple. Okay, so wait a minute. You mean you're God telling me that you're not going to couple with anyone? I'm telling you I'm a half. Just like that sperm, just like that nuclear strand of DNA, I am a half. I'm God, the half that's God, and whoever goddess is or her half, I'm not her half. So I'm a deity as a half, and I'm actually in violation. I shouldn't be allowed to live, right? I'm the one who made that rule that you're not allowed to live if you're a half. If you're trying to be me and that's all you want to be is half, I told you you can't live. I didn't say I can't live. I'm God. I am a half that can live. You're the half that can't live if it's going to be a half and won't be the other half. So I get to break the rules because I don't have to get with her half. God doesn't have to get with goddess. He's not going to get with goddess. She can be somewhere else and he's not going to be getting with her. Okay, great. So what does that mean? That means that God is doing something that man can't get away with. He's being a half that can be a fully empowered singularity. A fully empowered masculine singularity comes from God himself, and it won't be her, and it's not a feminine thing. It certainly is going to be above her, not sharing power with her, and it's because it's not coupled. It can't share power with her. If it shares power with her, it must couple first, and if the coupling is not properly done, then if they try to share power after the coupling, it will actually be a fight between two entities that are trying to usurp the power. It'll cause a war, which means that it is better for you not to try to couple with someone than to start a war after trying to couple with them, because that's what you're supposed to do, and it is what you're supposed to do. So I want you to fight wars over it, and we'll have conflicts continuing, because I told you, yes, you do have to couple, and if you have to start wars and fight wars and learn how to couple, and you can't learn, well, you'll have to have another war, because we're not going to learn how to not couple. We're going to learn how to couple and fight about it and fight over it until it happens, and it's going to happen. And we can have all the wars we want over and over until it happens, because until it happens correctly, we're going to fight and have wars over and over. And I'm going to guarantee you it'll happen. God being mad. That would just be God being mad. I apologize for that because, I'm not being mad about anything right now. It's God being pissed off. He's mad. To be told God is mad, I'm telling you, God's really pissed. He's not happy with any of us, even me. But he's happier with me in the sense that he's saying, well, yeah, Dennis, you've been dumb. You've been dumb many times, but at least I've been a high priest and had the highest privileges one time. And so he's given me the privilege in this lifetime to talk to him. And it didn't happen until I'm 53. So when I'm 53 years old, I was so traumatized by the fact he promised me he was going to come talk to me, and he didn't. And by that time, I'd spent 7 years being with the goddess in my head, trying to please her. And ultimately, it's because I cursed him out. That's when she showed up. So I met a goddess years ago, and it was a divine feminine in my head, and she didn't like him very much. And ultimately, I spent 7 years trying to deal with her. After 7 years, God came to me finally, and I was 54 years old. And he said, "You've been doing this 7 years, Dennis." And I suddenly realized I had been doing it 7 years. And who are you? And he said, "I'm God, and I'm finally here. I told you I was going to come, finally." And I was already messed up. So I wasn't calm. I wasn't okay. And when God came to me, I certainly was not cool and collected. I was disturbed and angry and pissed off and messed up and traumatized and hurt, angry at him, at her, at myself, at the world. I had every emotional issue and problem, and there was no coming back for me. I was totally disturbed emotionally. God came to me and said that you're messed up. I know, but you don't understand how messed up you are. You're traumatized. I didn't come to you till 54. I'm coming to you right now. I'm saying I don't even know, but I don't believe if you came to me right now. But let me tell you right now, if you're really here and you're telling me this, and it was the first time God ever talked to me, and I knew it. I knew it. I could hear his voice. He was in my head. I could feel his presence. I never felt that before. I didn't pretend to talk to God ever. I never did talk to God. He never came here. So when he did come to me, I didn't believe it. I certainly was like, well, I like it. Well, this is cool, but okay, are you kidding me? He said, you don't know how messed up you are. I'm showing up now. It's been 54 years since I haven't showed up for the whole time. I know, and I thought I was going to die and never see you and never talk to you, and you promised me. That's the truth. I did promise you, and you've been angry and yelling at me for 53 years now. When are you going to come? Ultimately, I could tell you that's what I was doing because I was really mad and I was waiting for him, but I didn't even know. Really, I just messed up in the head, wondering why. So what I'm doing is trying to carry out something I had to do back in the Trojan conflict. Yeah, a man should do what it takes to find his God. He should take no. He shouldn't stop at nothing, and let nothing deter you or stop you. Cling death itself and run towards death itself if that's what you have to run towards. Because to not find your God is too much of a tragedy and not forgivable, and it's not acceptable. So to die before you find God, so you can come back erased and completely forgot again, and then not even know you're trying to find your God. It'll take years and years for you to remember that's what you're trying to do. To be reborn and erased again, reincarnation process is punishment. The worst thing that happened to me is I'm erased, and I have to relearn everything. And I forgot my purpose. I remembered it halfway through my life, and then I forgot it again. So it took a whole nother half of life before I even remembered it again. I didn't even know I could talk to God or he was here until I was 54. I'm 54 now. It's only been less than a year that I'm saying God is with me now, and I know it. Am I going to forget this when I die? Is this going to be that I won't know God again for how long? And when I'm born in the new body and I don't remember any of this, I'll forget everything that I ever talked to God, that I ever wanted to, that it ever mattered. Why am I looking for him even? Does it even matter? Does coupling count? Does it matter if I'm sharing information? I'll forget all this stuff. How am I going to forget all this stuff? It took me so long to remember and get to this point right now where I can remember it all and I have all this information. How am I going to possibly be okay with the fact that when I die, I'm going to lose all this information and it'll be gone forever? And how am I going to get it back? And how hard is it going to be to get it back? will I even possibly be able to get it back? The truth of the matter is not likely that you'll get it back in the way that you have it now, since you have not been as conscious as you have 3,000 years ago when you were talking to a God personally and you were a high priest privileged to do it. Well, it's been 3,000 years that you haven't had that privilege given to you or known anything about it, which means God told me that I didn't know for the last 3,000 years I was being reborn over and over again. I didn't know I was any kind of priest of Apollo, or I was involved in the Trojan conflict or Trojan war, or that I was doing anything against goddesses or against the divine feminine, or not cooperating with women, or thinking I could enslave them or control them and thinking it's fair because I'm God. Am I really going to try that? So I didn't know for all this time that that any of this was true. This is the first time I'm putting it on video. Do you know how important this information is? Do you understand how it can't get lost? It has to be preserved somehow, because when I die, there's no way that any of this can be told to anyone ever again. How are they going to know any of this ever again? So God told me, well, certainly if this video is bouncing around the internet somewhere in 20, 50 years, well, maybe I'll show it to you when you're in your next body. I'm thinking, is that impossible that you're telling me that? Like, you're giving me a way that I could actually be told all of this? Well, if you're making a video and it happens to not get erased, it happens to be around in 20 years floating around the internet, well, the videos you made 20 years ago are still out there, aren't they? And they are. So I made videos 20 years ago that are still out there on YouTube. So, yeah, and if God doesn't want it erased, it won't get erased, he said. So don't worry. He told me that this information is being preserved for you, so you can tell the world and they could learn, and you could tell yourself, and you could come watch this later in another body when you've been erased and you don't remember any of this. Okay, is that going to be comforting me a lot? That I'll die and I'll forget it all, and I'll have to be reborn to a new body that can't remember nothing now, and then I'm going to watch these videos maybe if you show them to me? Well, certainly there's a way that you could find some hope. Certainly God could show you these videos if they exist. And watching them, you'll know. And then you'll know. So when you know something you're being told, when God tells you a story and you know it, you'll know it. Meaning he tells you something, you're going to know it. Your feelings will just be like, what the, oh my, like what? Because you, like, when you hear something that's true about your past lives, he's going to tell you a story and you'll be like, because that story is just too detailed. Don't tell me I made that up. And he's going to say, like, there's much more details to it. Like it really happened. Every bit of what I just told you happened. And that's just about it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.